I invite you to begin today's spiritual practice of loving kindness by simply sitting comfortably, allowing your body to rest and your heart to be soft, closing your eyes if that feels comfortable for you. Breathing in gently. We are first going to direct loving kindness to yourself. It may feel good to place your hand on your heart and envision the golden light of love enveloping you as you say within yourself, "May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be safe from inner or outer dangers. May I be well in my body and mind. May I be at ease and joyful." Take a moment to feel that loving kindness that you feel towards yourself, knowing that that love comes from your sacred connection to the divine that is within you. Now I invite you to imagine somebody that you love very dearly. Imagine them in their wholeness and their sacred self. You might imagine them enveloped in that golden light and say to them, "May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be safe from inner or outer dangers. May you be well in your body and mind. May you be at ease and joyful." Seeing that individual that you love so much completely filled with the divine golden light of love. I now invite you to imagine somebody that feels a little challenging to love sometimes. It might be somebody you know very well. It may be somebody that you don't know personally at all. But you have a little bit of challenge sending this person love. Know in this moment that they are also part of the divine, that they are also connected to divine source. Imagine them in that golden light of love and say to them, "May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be safe from inner or outer dangers. May you be well in your body and mind. May you be at ease and joyful." Now take a moment and see that person completely filled with love and kindness. Knowing that even the people that we feel most challenged by in our life, they are sacred souls on this planet having a human experience. And now I invite you to imagine your golden light of loving kindness enveloping the whole earth. You might see it spreading out from your feet and spreading out to encircle your whole home and then your neighborhood and then the region where you live, and then on until the entire earth is completely held in that golden divine light of loving kindness. And now I invite you to say to all beings on this planet, "May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be safe from inner and outer dangers. May we be well in our body and mind. May we be at ease and joyful. Taking one last moment to imagine the whole earth being raised by our collective consciousness of loving kindness in this moment. Take one more deep breath in, and as you let it out, return to this now moment and open your eyes. Namaste, and so it is.
And now, introducing our December theme, Return to the One, is today's, our interim minister, Reverend Dr. Nadene Rogers, with her talk entitled From Agony to Ecstasy. Please help me welcome Reverend Nadene.
You're on mute.
Aloha, I'm back again. Take two. Welcoming all of you here from CSL West Hawaii and everyone that has joined us today from far and wide. It's really wonderful to be with you. You know, it's interesting, after all these years, I have delivered messages and worked with communities. I still get nervous before I speak. I don't know what that is. And today, a little more so. And I think it's because I've chosen to speak on something called agony. Let's, we teach spiritual practice here and practical spirituality here through, and it's always quoted and remind, even their study teaching, it's not always easy to explain what this teaching is. So I like to always share that on Sundays. And Dr. Holmes summarizes his teaching, called The Science of Mind and Spirit, as a correlation of laws of science, opinions of philosophy, and revelations of world religions, which are applied to human needs and the aspirations of man. So applied to the human being where we are in life, at our level of consciousness and awareness, and that part within us that imagined and dreams a reality beyond what has gone before in our own experience. So practical spirituality. I find that as we study and we walk in this spiritual journey, even though we think we know what's going to happen, because we like to be fairly aware and in control as we are planners and doers, there's more and more of that mystery, that sense of mystery that we're aware of as well. And, you know, that's always calling us to surrender to our highest good from the spiritual bank or banquet of God, the infinite potential of life, rather than just our notion of what the highest could be. So we practice spirituality in both levels, right? Communicating and building relationship with the world of condition, as well opening and surrendering to a deepening faith of how the universe works and to the mystery that pulls us into the greater awareness of the divine or the Christ consciousness within us. So today I've chosen to address our theme, Return to the One, from the perspective of moving from agony to ecstasy. So let's get a feel for the state of agony as a place to begin. Now, I was thinking about this, and this is what I came up with. Agony. Believing in our brokenness, our unfortunate destiny, our lot in life, feeling lonely without hope or direction, constantly reaching for something that is never realized, becoming the person you vowed you would never be, and do to someone what was done to you that you vowed you would never do to another. Agony. The moment you get that you do have choice, and at the same moment realize the life you've chosen up until this point. Agony. The inability to imagine, to visualize, to dream a different experience, a way of being, or what it might feel like if you were happy, prosperous, fulfilled, or truly loved. Agony. Seeing the life you desire clearly, just beyond your grasp. Sometimes that's agony. Now, as I mentioned before, I know that not one of you said to yourself getting up this morning, I think I'll tune in to the Sunday celebration service at West Hawaii and get my booster shot by upliftment and discussing agony, despair, unhappiness, or the perils of self-doubt, or the feelings of unworthiness. But Return to the One is about the journey of awakening to the joy of life in each moment and the capacity of personal and spiritual empowerment to choose towards an expanded experience of the life we continue to envision, right? So we can only really awaken by being willing to release what we believe about who we are, peeling yet another layer of lack and limitation away, allowing the more of our wholeness to be expressed. Then we each start where we are. We move towards ecstasy or the experience of wholeness, or the return to the one, or to radical joy, only by opening to receiving the divine self. That point in Christ consciousness where the two merge as one. Each time we release the belief in separation with this divine self through releasing our self-judgment upon our humanity, we move a little closer to that experience of oneness. And in this process, we remember who we truly are. Spiritual beings, individualized expressions of that which is cause back of all creation, remembering what it is like to be truly home, right? At one meant home, at one. Is this human journey not about the wonder, the curiosity, the awe, and the amazement found in asking the deeper questions and living through the deeper challenges which follow in answer to those questions, in which the light becomes even brighter? In other words, without the state of agony, would there even be a state of ecstasy? And how could one state exist within the oneness without its sacred complement in order for us to actually know wholeness? So for me, this begs the question then, is this then what we are after? Is it the state of ecstasy? Or is it an awareness of our own wholeness, from which we live our lives day to day and enjoy the multiple aspects of self, of life in this incarnation? We are taught, and as we learn to understand and use this premise of the law of cause and effect operating through all of life, moving the invisible substance into visible form, or our thought into experience, that this is the process through which we participate in co-creating our own reality and expand our own conscious awareness. So does it not then make sense that we experience the expansion of our awareness by seeing our growth, by the movement from agony or lack, right? Lack thinking, to ecstasy or oneness or radical joy or infinite potential, right? We must be able to see our growth to make the journey. And when we make the journey, we see our growth. So it is upon our growth we demonstrate that the law of mind and action is working. And it is our journey between agony and ecstasy that we prove to ourselves our profound relationship with the law and experience the raising of collective consciousness beyond what has gone before. This is the journey the human journey. So let's talk a little bit more about ecstasy. How do we know if we're truly experiencing ecstasy, or again, as I like to use the term, radical joy? Well, I think it comes from a contentment that comes and goes. A contentment that might never leave us again. Or it might. Are you content? I think if your contentment comes and goes, then your joy might be merely a gap between two miseries. I think anything that comes and goes is a dream. It's not real. Maybe, maybe not. Think about it. What we ordinarily think of as joy may not be joy. At the most, it may be entertainment. A way to avoid oneself, perhaps, or to intoxicate oneself, to drown in something so we can forget our misery, our worry, our anxiety. I think that anything that comes from the outside or that we depend on outside of ourselves isn't really radical joy. Joy arises out of our very core and is absolutely independent of any circumstances. What do you think about that? I don't think joy is escape from oneself. I think it is the real encountering of oneself. Joy arises only when we come home, when we are at one. So how to move towards ecstasy from agony? Thought about a few things to share with you. The first thing that came to my mind was to see life as a mirror of our divine self. Now, often we talk about, oh, there's a challenge, it's an opportunity, don't point the finger out there, point it in here, and then we learn, no, don't judge anything, outer or inner, just observe, right, and choose again. These are the kinds of things you hear, right? But what if you saw life as a mirror of your divine self, not your human self? And I'm just going to separate those for the making of the point. Your divine self calling you to awaken and return to the one. No matter our outer circumstances, something within us says, and this comes from a course called Self-Mastery that I'm facilitating at the moment. Something within us says, this can't be all there is, right? There is always an emptiness to be filled, and God doesn't know a void. So we continue to journey, we continue to find our way. And we find our way, I think, through internal, intentional changing of the guard. Changing of the guard for me means who's standing at the door of your mind, right? So we continue to find our way through intentional, internal changing of the guard and being grounded in our faith in the changeless, in what is changeless, right? The principles of life, oneness, wholeness, unity. The governing spiritual laws of the universe, cause and effect, law of attraction, law of growth. The creative process of how we create or co-create the reality in our life. Thought being cause, right? And the form being the experience. That is changeless. So what might be some of the red flags that serve as opportunities to release the beliefs that bring us into or keep us in this state of agony? Okay, so I think if we are not looking our misery in the face, I think that's one of them, when we try to avoid or escape. Because when one faces their misery and looks into it, they can begin to see through it, right? Begin to separate from it. For it truly is an illusion. It's just a temporal state or feeling. But unfortunately, it often becomes a self-identity that is being created by that limited belief system. And when we face it, we see this. And then we begin to know that we are not that. And in that realization, suddenly comes the break, and with it, kind of an outburst of joy. Here's the second red flag. If we are feeling too attached, right? How attached we are to the world of condition to define who we are might be a red flag. Because whatever we are attached to, we have chosen for a reason. Now, this reason is usually based upon a belief, conscious or unconscious, that says we lack something. And that what we think we lack can be found or attained outside of ourselves. And when we have this belief, we automatically give our innate creative power over to something or someone else who we look to for the answer, right? The idea that the relative world has no power and only perpetuates our experience of duality or separation from the one is that outburst, that realization, that feeling of joy when we realize that. I'm going to give you one, I'm going to give you two more. The next one is, the next red flag is if we find ourselves overanalyzing or overachieving or overcompensating because we compare ourselves to others. Comparison is definitely created by a belief in duality. One is better or something is better than another. Now, we must come to know that the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence, but don't jump the fence to see actually whether it is so, right? Just enjoy it. If it's greener on the other side of the fence, enjoy it. For when you reach where you think you are going to find the greener grass, it's not there. And the last one, which I want to go into in a little more depth, is this. If we pursue happiness instead of acceptance, that's a red flag. I think we often misuse our conscious mind by thinking from the level of effect, of the tangible world, the world of duality, and believing that it has power. So we start from there and we do not go towards our potential, but rather create more of the same reality. Proper conscious use of mind is to align ourselves with God mind, right? Christ consciousness, higher truth, trusting the function of the law to bring to us that which we desire. And I'm sure you've all discovered that while you can find happiness in the pursuit of it, it's often temporary, right? I'm going to give you a bit of an illustration of this. In India, when someone dies, they're put on a stretcher and they're carried to the pyre. Now, what happens is the people that are holding the stretcher are constantly changing the position of it along the way, from the right shoulder to the left shoulder and back again. But nevertheless, no matter how they change and position themselves in the condition in which they find themselves, which is carrying the stretcher, the full weight is always present. Now, when you shift the weight, it feels like a relief, right? When you pursue happiness and you feel happy, oh, it feels like a relief, but it is temporary. For the weight of what motivated you to pursue it in the first place is still there. Just like the weight of this body is the belief we carry in the unreal self, the ego self, what the mind is fixed upon outside of us is the next answer to our misery. This is the belief in duality, creating conflict within you as you seek happiness in your life. And you know the story, I'm sure, of Buddha. He was in pursuit of happiness, so much so that he dropped his kingdom. He was known as the first real dropout. Sorry, I had to throw that in. Oh my gosh. Okay, so to drop something, I think that you first must have something to drop, right? And he had the best of it all and decided to renounce it all for happiness, because happiness was nowhere to be found there. So he thought. So he went to seek it, to pursue it, To do everything and anything, he had to find it. And for 6 years, he went to masters and scholars and sages and saints, and he endured tremendous effort, austerities, fasting, yoga postures, and nothing happened. Then one day he found himself by a small and shallow river. He decided he would go for a bath, but he could not manage to cross the river in his weakened state. By holding on to a small root of a tree, he managed to keep himself stationary. Otherwise, he would have been swept away. And while he was hanging on to the root, the idea occurred to him. These sages say that existence is like an ocean. If existence is like an ocean, then whatever I am doing is not right. Because if I can't cross this poor river, how am I going to cross the ocean of existence? Whatever I have been doing, I have simply wasted my time, my life, my energy, my body. So somehow he managed to come out of the river, and he dropped all effort and sat under a tree. And that night, the moon was full as he slept well for the first time in 6 years, because there was nothing to do. The next day, nowhere to go, no practice, no exercise. He could sleep as much as he wanted. From the first time, he felt a total freedom from all effort, seeking, searching, and pursuit. For the first time, he felt it. And in the morning, as he opened his eyes, the last star was disappearing. It is said that with that last star disappearing, Buddha disengaged too. All his past was gone, and therefore Buddha was gone. All his past was gone, and therefore Buddha was gone. This was the experience of bliss, of radical joy, of ecstasy, of transcendence, of all that had been sought and was missed because of the seeking. Now, it is said that this story is the most important story in Buddha's life. Nothing else is comparable to it, for this is where Buddha awakened. We want to drop misery or agony for happiness, but is it the wrong approach? For everything in life has an organic unity. For pain and pleasure are not two things. But in a more scientific language, we would drop both words, perhaps, and make them one: pain, pleasure, or pleasure, pain, or life, death, one word, day, night, one word. We always want to choose one part, but they are inseparable. We want the rose, but not the thorns, the love, but not the hate or the sorrow. It will not happen. We will have to drop both. Then an entirely new world arises, the world of radical joy or bliss or ecstasy. And you know, this ecstasy showers us just like that, like this. You just have to be sitting, doing nothing, waiting, not waiting for God or waiting for happiness, just waiting. Open. Not for anything in particular, but simply waiting. In a state of waiting, awareness happens. And because it happens, now ecstasy, rather stat joy cannot be controlled. And think about it. If there were joyful, ecstatic people in this world, society were far structure would hold anymore. And by the way, it's when we move from agony to living in ecstasy, we too feel like we are falling apart. So to prepare the way for ecstasy, We need to make sure we're inquiring into the truth, just like a child who is so curious, that wants to know everything. You know, like how to open the clock and look inside, figure it out. When the whole family jumps on the kid going, stop, you're going to destroy the clock. This is not good. Keep your curiosity open and your curious mind at work. And the other thing is, try to cultivate that innocence. So many of us have lost it. So many of us grew up, having to grow up way too fast, didn't have our childhood for some reason or another. Some had great childhoods. But nevertheless, we do get lost in listening to the majority or the rule in when we should have dinner, when we should get up, when we, all the shoulds in our lives. That doesn't leave room for innocence, innocence, like the child in us that sometimes questions, why don't I just eat when I'm hungry, or sleep when I'm tired, or get up when I'm not tired anymore, right? So ecstasy is already right here at the core of our being. If you choose to find it, you can find it right here in this moment. It doesn't need a single moment's postponement. Your intense thirst to return to the one can open the door, and the divine urge within you can right now set you free into that feeling. When we live from our own wholeness, we return to the one. And it's an ongoing, evolving, creative process in the human journey. When we learn that there is only one nature of all being, one life, begetting life out of itself, multiplicity from unity, our conflicts dissolve and we can joyfully live in this world condition. Be of the world, but not in it. I say, be of the world and in it, knowing the truth of whose and who we are. And so it is.